Hidden behind segregation's walls in 1921, Tulsa, an entire black district, circulated its own millions. Money changed hands dozens of times before ever leaving Greenwood's 35 bustling blocks. Forget stories of destruction. We are tracing the documented fortunes, systems, and secrets of the families who built Black Wall Street's greatest empires, who really held the keys to an economy so powerful it threatened the very structure of America. It starts with the economic engine no one expected. Every dollar earned in Greenwood moved with a purpose. Segregation, designed to isolate, instead created a closed-loop economy where black money rarely escaped the district. A teacher's paycheck bought groceries from a black-owned store. That grocer paid rent to a black landlord who hired a local contractor, who in turn spent his earnings at the Dreamland Theater or on a new suit from a tailor on Greenwood Avenue. Each transaction kept wealth circulating, multiplying its impact with every exchange. Historians estimate that before a single dollar left Greenwood, it changed hands dozens of times. The effect was a powerful economic multiplier. In most American cities, money flowed out of black neighborhoods almost instantly, spent at white-owned stores, deposited in white-controlled banks, used to pay white landlords. In Tulsa's Greenwood, banking restrictions and segregation laws forced black residents to build their own institutions. Black-owned banks, insurance companies, and businesses formed an ecosystem where dollars bounced from hand to hand, business to business, family to family. This wasn't just survival, it was acceleration. The same dollar might buy bread in the morning, pay for a haircut in the afternoon, and cover a movie ticket at night, each transaction supporting a different black entrepreneur. The effect compounded quickly. When a doctor paid a local builder to expand his office, that builder hired black laborers who spent their wages at neighborhood shops. The resulting prosperity wasn't accidental. It was engineered by necessity, then amplified by ambition. Contemporary economic commentary noted the remarkable velocity of cash in Greenwood. White bankers and city officials, barred from direct participation, watched as black capital pooled and grew behind invisible walls. The district's banks held deposits that rivaled those of white institutions serving much larger populations. With limited outlets for spending outside the district, black Tulsans reinvested in their own community, funding new businesses, homes, and cultural venues. Even everyday purchases became acts of collective investment. This cycle of internal spending explains how fortunes could form so rapidly. A single successful business supported dozens of employees, who in turn became customers for other ventures. Landlords like O.W. Gurley collected rent from shopkeepers, who sold goods to teachers, who paid for services from barbers, tailors, and doctors. The same dollar, moving in a tight circle, built wealth layer by layer. By 1921, Greenwood's economic engine was running at full speed. The district's wealth was not just visible in its grand hotels or busy theaters, but in the constant movement of cash, each transaction reinforcing the next. In a city built to keep black residents out, Greenwood built its own prosperity from the inside out. Greenwood stretched across 35 city blocks north of downtown Tulsa, its boundaries marked by a steady rhythm of commerce and ambition. The heart of the district pulsed along Greenwood Avenue, where storefronts pressed shoulder to shoulder, each one a piece of the larger economic engine. Grocery stores, barbershops, and drug stores lined the sidewalks, their windows crowded with hand-painted signs and displays. Beyond the main avenue, the grid fanned out into a dense network of side streets, each packed with activity. By 1921, the district supported a remarkable range of businesses. 4 hotels welcomed travelers shut out of white establishments, offering not just beds, but full-service restaurants and gathering spaces for conventions and social clubs. 2 hospitals provided care when black patients were denied service elsewhere. 7 grocery stores kept families supplied, while 2 candy shops and 2 pool halls offered small indulgences. Barber and beauty shops, undertakers, and auto garages filled out the essential services. each owned and operated by Black entrepreneurs. This diversity of trade kept Greenwood humming. Religion and community life found their centers in 8 churches and 2 Masonic lodges. The sound of printing presses echoed from 2 newspapers, keeping residents informed and connected. Movie theaters and the Dreamland Theater brought in the latest films and live performances, drawing crowds from across the city. Real estate offices managed the flow of property, while doctors' offices and dental clinics anchored the district's professional class. These institutions formed the backbone of community life. The district's density was striking. On a single block, one might find a bakery next to a tailor, a law office above a pharmacy, and a restaurant beside a shoe repair shop. This layering of businesses created a commercial tapestry that rivaled Tulsa's white downtown for both variety and sophistication. The density and layering made Greenwood feel like a complete urban center. City directories and business registries from the era cataloged Greenwood's breadth: billiard halls, clothing stores, music shops, furniture outlets, and meat markets. The variety was not just a matter of pride, it was a practical response to segregation. Every essential service had to be duplicated within Greenwood's borders because Black residents were barred from white-owned equivalents. This necessity produced a district where nearly every need could be met without ever leaving the neighborhood. The scale of Greenwood's infrastructure stood out even against the backdrop of Tulsa's oil-fueled boom. As the city's population grew from fewer than 20,000 in 1910 to nearly 100,000 by 1920, Greenwood kept pace, expanding its footprint and deepening its commercial roots. The district's blocks were more than a collection of shops. They formed a self-sustaining city within a city, each business feeding into the next, every street alive with possibility. Infrastructure and ownership defined its strength. This was not a scattered cluster of small ventures. Greenwood was a fully realized urban district, mapped out with the precision of any major downtown. Its hotels, theaters, hospitals, newspapers, and banks created a layered economy, each sector reinforcing the others. The result was a commercial density and diversity that positioned Greenwood as a model of urban organization and entrepreneurial success. The result was a commercial density and diversity unmatched by any other Black community in America at the time. Greenwood was more than a neighborhood, it was a blueprint for what happens when capital stays in the community, unmatched in scale and deliberate in design. O.W. Gurley's story begins with a single calculated move, the purchase of 40 acres of land on Tulsa's undeveloped north side. At a time when most Black migrants arrived with little more than hope, Gurley arrived with a plan. He did not just buy land, he bought the blueprint for a community. County deed books from the era list Gurley as the owner of parcel after parcel, each one marked for Black ownership only. This was not speculation, this was strategy. Gurley sold lots to families and entrepreneurs barred from white neighborhoods, but he kept many properties for himself, building a real estate portfolio that would eventually top 100 rental units. His holdings stretched across Greenwood, 2-story boarding houses, rows of single-family homes, and a mixed-use building where he ran his own grocery store on the ground floor. Each property generated steady rental income month after month as Greenwood's population surged. The city's oil boom brought new arrivals, and Gurley's buildings filled quickly. Rent checks flowed in from shopkeepers, teachers, and laborers, all locked out of Tulsa's white housing market. Gurley reinvested, buying more lots, constructing new buildings, and maintaining a steady churn of tenants. By 1921, Gurley was not just a landlord, he was the district's silent engine. His properties housed the workers who staffed Greenwood's businesses, the families who shopped on its avenues, and the professionals who anchored its institutions. Land was more than an asset, it was Greenwood's foundation. Gurley's model turned segregation's limits into a platform for ownership, stability, and growth. The dirt beneath Greenwood's feet was his first and most enduring investment. J.B. Stratford's hotel rose above Greenwood Avenue like a statement. 3 stories of pressed brick and stone, more than 50 rooms filled with travelers, musicians, and entrepreneurs who had nowhere else to stay in Tulsa. Opened in 1918, the Stratford Hotel was not just the largest Black-owned hotel in the country, it was the beating heart of Greenwood's service economy. Each guest who signed the register added to a steady stream of revenue, not just for Stratford, but for the cooks, porters, and local suppliers who kept the operation running. The dining room buzzed with conversation and deals. Banquet halls hosted conventions and celebrations that brought visitors from across Oklahoma and beyond. For Black professionals barred from white institutions, the Stratford was where business got done. Movement was just as important as a place to stay. Simon Barry recognized that dignity started with how people got around. His fleet of jitneys, early shared taxis, shuttled residents along Greenwood's main arteries, connecting homes to businesses and churches. By the early 1920s, Barry's operation had grown to include some of the first Black-owned buses in the region. Riders paid a few cents for a trip, but the real value was the freedom to travel without humiliation. Barry's drivers were local men. His mechanics were trained within the district. Every fare collected stayed in Greenwood, bouncing from Barry's payroll into the hands of barbers, grocers, and landlords. There are even accounts that Barry explored the idea of chartering flights, imagining a future where Greenwood's reach extended into the skies. Stratford's hotel and Barry's transit lines did more than provide services. They stitched the district together. Visitors arrived, stayed, and spent. Residents moved freely, supporting businesses across 35 blocks. Hospitality and transportation turned isolation into opportunity, driving commerce and reinforcing the economic web that made Greenwood thrive. John and Lula Williams shaped Greenwood's nightlife and social calendar as much as any banker or landlord shaped its skyline. Their Dreamland Theater opened in 1914, and it was more than a movie house. It was a gathering point for celebrations, lectures, and the latest films. On weekends, ticket lines stretched down Greenwood Avenue. Records show Dreamland's capacity topped 750 seats, and it regularly hosted packed houses for touring vaudeville acts and community events. The Williamses did not stop at entertainment. Their Williams Building, a multi-use structure, combined retail storefronts with professional offices upstairs, with lawyers, dentists, and small businesses all under one roof. Rental income from these tenants provided steady returns, while the theater's box office brought in cash night after night. The Williams family understood the value of culture as currency. They created a space where Black Tulsans could see themselves reflected on stage and screen at a time when segregation shut them out of white venues. Their investments in entertainment and real estate reinforced each other, anchoring Greenwood's reputation as a place of refinement and ambition. Medical prestige found its champion in Dr. A.C. Jackson. His surgical skill drew patients from across Oklahoma and beyond. Contemporary accounts in the Black press described him as one of the best Black surgeons in America, with some reports saying the Mayo Clinic called him the most able in the country. Jackson's practice operated from a well-equipped office in the heart of Greenwood, offering care when Black patients were unwelcome elsewhere. His reputation elevated Greenwood's status, attracting professionals and families who wanted the best for their children. Together, the Williamses and Dr. Jackson proved that Greenwood's prosperity was measured not just in property, but in culture and expertise. Flames erupted before sunrise on May 31, 1921. Archer Street, once lined with Black-owned businesses, became the first casualty as white mobs swept north, torching buildings block by block. Within hours, Greenwood's grid of homes, shops, and offices was under siege. Eyewitnesses described the sky turning orange, smoke rising so thick it blotted out the sun. The attack moved with a speed that defied belief. Fires leapt from rooftop to rooftop, fueled by gasoline and set deliberately. Some survivors recalled the deafening crack of gunfire mixed with the roar of burning timber. The violence came not just from the ground. residents reported low-flying airplanes circling above the district, dropping incendiary devices onto rooftops. These aircraft, commandeered from local airfields, rained destruction from above, igniting fires that spread beyond the reach of any bucket brigade. In less than 18 hours, more than 1,200 homes and businesses were reduced to ashes. Entire blocks collapsed into smoldering ruins, their contents looted before they fell. As the firestorm swept through Greenwood, families fled for their lives, some with only the clothes on their backs. The district's hospitals, hotels, and theaters, all symbols of Black prosperity, vanished in a single day. The speed and scale of the destruction left no time for rescue, no hope for saving property. By nightfall, what had taken decades to build was gone, replaced by a landscape of ruin and loss. National Guard trucks rolled up as the last flames died down. Armed soldiers, some barely older than the people they rounded up, moved from street to street, forcing Greenwood's residents from the ruins of their homes. Men, women, and children, nearly every Black Tulsan who survived the night, were marched under guard to hastily chosen detention sites. The convention hall downtown filled first, then the fairgrounds on the edge of the city. Red Cross rosters from June 1921 list more than 6,000 names, each one a survivor stripped of freedom and property. For some, internment lasted a day. For others, more than a week. At the gates, guards checked passes and kept families separated. The city's white leaders claimed these measures were for protection. The effect was clear. Survivors were cut off from their neighborhoods, unable to salvage what little remained. While Greenwood's streets still smoldered, detainees lined up for rations, sleeping on cots or bare floors. Soldiers patrolled the perimeters, rifles at the ready. Outside, mobs picked through the ruins, looting valuables and tearing down what the fires left behind. Inside the holding sites, the sense of loss was sharpened by uncertainty. No charges were filed, no timeline was given. The district's wealth was not only destroyed, it was now out of reach, locked behind barbed wire and bayonets. Insurance was supposed to be a safety net, but for Greenwood's families and business owners, it became another locked door. In the weeks after the massacre, survivors filed claims for everything lost: homes, hotels, shops, inventory, even personal belongings. The numbers told the scale. By July 1921, more than $4 million in claims flooded local insurance offices. Every single one was denied. Policies contained clauses excluding riots and civil disturbances. Companies pointed to the violence and argued they were not responsible. There was no payout for the Stratford Hotel, no compensation for the Williams Dreamland Theater, no settlement for Dr. Jackson's clinic or Gurley's rental empire. Denied by insurers, survivors turned to the courts. Lawsuits stacked up in Tulsa County, each one a desperate attempt to recover a lifetime's work. Court records show a steady stream of cases, but the legal system offered little hope. Judges dismissed claims, citing the same riot exemptions. Some families, facing ruin, sold their land for a fraction of its value or left Tulsa altogether. Others stayed and started over, rebuilding with borrowed money or pooled resources. By 1942, over 200 Black businesses operated in Greenwood once again, but the original fortunes, built over decades, were gone. The financial chokehold after the fire was as deliberate as the violence itself, designed to keep the wealth from returning. Today, the wealth gap between Black and white families in America remains larger than at any point since the Civil Rights era, an enduring legacy of erased empires like Greenwood. As conversations about reparations and generational wealth grow, the blueprint these families built still challenges assumptions about possibility. The lesson is clear: when capital circulates within a community, the future can be reimagined. What would it take to reclaim that vision now?